Oh. Good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome. I'm going to ask us to get seated so we can get started. For our friends in the live audience at Rogers. Good morning, everyone. My name is Su-Ling Ching, and it's my honor to be the President and CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade. On behalf of Mayor Mark Sutcliffe, the Ottawa Board of Trade, and the Ottawa Business Journal, welcome to the first Mayor's Breakfast of 2024. I was just thinking we should call it 2024, the year of Ottawa or something. We'll come up with something good for next month. I'm joined this morning by my co-presenter, Michael Curran, the president and publisher of the Ottawa Business Journal, our premier media outlet. Michael, welcome. I hope all of you are enjoying a productive and successful start to 2024. We are thrilled to be gathered here in our beautiful City Hall in downtown Ottawa. Ottawa is built on unceded Algonquin and Anishinaabe territory. The peoples of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. We honor the peoples and land of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation. We honor all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples and their valuable past and present contributions to this land. I want to say thank you for the fantastic team at City Hall for hosting us here. I want to say thank you to our event partners, Centurion. I hope you all enjoyed your breakfast this morning. And to our friends at Rogers TV, who are recording for us and broadcasting live. Please encourage those in your network to catch up on today's replay of our conversation, which is made possible by Rogers. And I also want to actually just take a moment and thank Rogers, who are also now producing a show for the Ottawa Board of Trade called Ottawa Business Matters. And it is airing every Sunday night and 4 times throughout the week to highlight all the fabulous stuff that we have going on in Ottawa. The mayor was good enough to be on our inaugural show, so we have business leaders there, we have community leaders, elected officials, and highlighting local businesses. So we hope you'll tune in to the TV show on Rogers and also found as a podcast on Apple and, oh yes, I should mention, thank you, Michael, this will be the clincher. It is hosted by Ottawa's own Sam LaPrade. So you will be, so you will be sure hosted and produced. So many of you in the audience might be getting a call from her soon. So we're looking forward to curating a wonderful conversation about what Ottawa's opportunities are through Sam and the show. A special welcome to board members Melissa Reeves from Linebox Studio and Julie Lupinacci from Hydro Ottawa. Thank you as board members for your steadfast leadership in our business community. I would like to acknowledge the OBOT ambassadors, Linda McCallum of Royal LePage Team Realty, James Dunn from the University of Waterloo, and John Nelson from Carleton University. If you're not currently a member of the Board of Trade, don't tell anybody, no. Please connect with one of our ambassadors or Holly from our team to find out how you can be more involved in building up Ottawa and receiving member benefits. I want to say thank you to all of our members, our partners, and volunteers for your support and ensuring that Ottawa has a strong voice of business. Special welcome, of course, to our guest speaker, the Honourable François-Philippe Champagne. We are so happy to have you here today. Welcome to the Honourable Mona Fortier, MP Marie-France Lalonde, MP Yasser Naqvi, and MP Ryan Turnbull. Thank you for being here. Please join me in welcoming council members Ralston King, Kathy Curry, Riley Brockington, Marty Carr, and Laura Dudas, and Alan Hubley this morning. Thank you for being here this morning as well. And I would like to make a special welcome back to City Hall to our friend, the former Mayor of Ottawa, Jim Watson. Jim, do you want to? Thank you. Do you miss doing this, Jim? Do you miss the mayor's breakfast? It's Groundhog Day. We're pleased to acknowledge two of our pillar partners that have joined us here today, Enbridge Gas and BDO Canada. Thank you for being here. The Ottawa Board of Trade is the voice of business and a key economic partner in Ottawa with a mission to cultivate a thriving world-class business community in our region. It is to that end that we are pleased to bring you all together as business and community leaders to network, to share thought leadership and collaborate on important issues as we build up Ottawa and our country. As you know, the Board of Trade has declared downtown Ottawa as a top priority and has called on every level of government to do the same. We know that the pandemic has disproportionately impacted all Canadian downtowns, which are the economic and cultural powerhouses in our metropolitan areas, collectively accounting for over 60% of our national GDP. However, Ottawa and Gatineau have been further impacted due to our strong federal presence and changes in workforce trends. We have a really unique opportunity to transform our downtown and the national capital area to be more diverse, more resilient and vibrant than ever before, and to be a capital city that all Canadians can be proud of. We would like to say thank you to our local MPs and also MP Yasser Naqvi for his leadership on this issue through the recent release of the Downtown Revitalization Report. The Board of Trade was pleased to contribute to this task force and have integrated the findings in the work that we are doing to create a Downtown Ottawa Action Plan. We have been working diligently along with our friends at the Canadian Urban Institute, the City of Ottawa, the City of Gatineau, Ottawa Tourism, Invest Ottawa, BOMA, and the NCC, and many pillar partners to finalize this plan. Following our downtown summit in the fall and a robust engagement process, including analyzing best practices from across the world, we are confident that we can move forward quickly on this downtown opportunity. We look forward to launching the plan and the subsequent campaign following our city building summit in mid-April. Please stay tuned. Together, business, community, and government leaders built this capital city, and we remain called upon to ensure it thrives, setting an example for bold leadership, radical collaboration, and innovative city building for the world. As we kick off this morning's breakfast, let's recognize the wonderful businesses and organizations that support the Mayor's Breakfast, our lead sponsor, Hydro Ottawa, our featured sponsor, Edelman, Algonquin College, Commissionaires, Enbridge, Ottawa Senators Hockey Club, RBC, the Westin, our global partners, Oakwood and the Casino Lac Limi, our gift sponsor, Eamon Hardin, and our coffee sponsor, maybe the most important one, the coffee sponsor is Capital Office. A big thank you to all of our sponsors, please. It is now my pleasure to welcome our featured sponsor today, President, Edelman Global Advisory and GM for Ottawa, Darcy Walsh. Darcy, welcome.
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see everybody here and some familiar faces, Jim and Councillor Hubley and Mayor Sutcliffe. Nice to have you. Exciting day in Ottawa as always, too. We're going to launch the Blues Fest lineup. I think a moment that everybody enjoys in the city, as always. And I think Mark Monahan today at 10 o'clock. But we're here to see Minister Champagne today and hear the great things that he and his department are doing for not only our city, but for the rest of Canada. And one of your predecessors, Minister James Moore, says hello from our office in Vancouver. So anyway, on that, it's nice to see everybody. We've also left our 2024 Trust Barometer findings for all of you and launching our Canadian findings next week on March 6th. So without any further ado, Su-Ling, thank you again for all that you do with the Board of Trade. And I think back to you.
Thank you, Darcy. I'd now like to welcome to the stage Mayor Sutcliffe to welcome our special guest. Thank you.
Thank you, Su-Ling. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à l'Hôtel de Ville. C'est vraiment un plaisir de vous accueillir ici ce matin. We have a very special guest this morning, and if we're starting a couple minutes late, I'm sorry, but it's just because the minister wanted to personally thank every single person here for coming. So very hard to guide him through a crowded room of people, I'll tell you that. Su-Ling mentioned that Hydro Ottawa is one of our sponsors, and I just wanted to thank the team at Hydro Ottawa for their hard work last night and this morning, because with those high winds last night, there were a number of places where there were power outages, and they're continuing to work on that on our behalf, and they always do such an amazing job. So thank you, Hydro Ottawa. I also want to welcome my colleagues from City Council, Ralston, Riley, Laura, Marty, Kathy, and Alan. And I know Kathy and Alan are particularly excited to have the minister here today because of everything that's happening in Canada. And it's a great pleasure to welcome back to Ottawa City Hall Jim Watson. I walk past Jim's portrait in the hallway every day, so it's nice to see you in 3D, Jim. And we were reflecting this morning on the fact that in the late 1990s, when I was the publisher of the Ottawa Business Journal and Jim was the mayor of the pre-amalgamation Ottawa, we created this event together, the Mayor's Breakfast. And so it still feels weird for me to be here in the role of mayor as opposed to the role of in my role with the Ottawa Business Journal. So there are lots of good things happening right now in our community, and I'm very glad to see my federal colleagues here, Mona Fortier, Marie-France Lalonde, Yasser Naqvi, and welcome to Ryan Turnbull, the parliamentary secretary. And we... yeah. Nobody's happier to see you than François-Philippe Champagne. But we have some great things going on in our city, and I want to thank Yasser, as Su-Ling did, for his leadership on downtown Ottawa. And Mona, thank you for all you've done for our city and for the great collaborative working relationship that we've had that led to many, many things, including the recent announcement that we made about $176 million in funding from the Housing Accelerator Fund for the City of Ottawa. It's a big win for our community, and Mona played a huge role in that. So we're very grateful for that. I always like when the media throws out a number for what's expected to be the funding amount, and the number's lower than what it's actually going to be, and then it turns out to be a bigger number because that makes it sound a lot better. So we were very happy with that. And then I want to thank Marie-France. Merci Marie-France. Hier, nous avons fait une annonce in the East End of Ottawa. As many of you know, I spoke to a few residents from the East End this morning. There are major traffic challenges, and our colleague Catherine Kitts and I have been working on that for some time. And yesterday we announced that an agreement, a memorandum of understanding with the National Capital Commission for a realignment of Renault Road and an extension of the Brian Coburn Boulevard, so that will help to alleviate some of that congestion in the East End, which is a major inconvenience and safety risk for residents in that area. It's a lot of congestion, it's a lot of emissions, and it's also, there are economic impacts of that kind of congestion and the restriction of the flow of goods and the flow of people. So it's a big step forward for our community, and particularly for Orleans and Orleans South. And I want to say thank you to Marie-France for her collaboration on that. We worked together very well on that. Alors, je vous remercie pour votre présence ce matin ici à l'Hôtel de Ville. It's great to see everyone, and I'm really pleased to have the minister here, our Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry, François-Philippe Champagne. And I think you'll be surprised to learn a few facts about him, which we'll get into in our discussion. But he's not actually bilingual. You might be surprised to hear that he's not bilingual, because he is trilingual. So he also speaks Italian in addition to French and English. And he has previous experience as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities, and Minister of International Trade. But before he got into politics, he actually lived outside of Canada in Europe for about 20 years. So he's had a great career in law and business before going into politics to serve his community and to serve our country. And so, one of the areas that we're going to talk about this morning is the future of technology and how Ottawa can play a role in that. We're also going to talk about another exciting part of the minister's portfolio, which is our space program. We're going back to the moon, and that's under the minister's portfolio, so that's very exciting as well. So please join me in welcoming Minister François-Philippe Champagne.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Oh.
Non, je vais faire ça.
Okay.
Bonjour tout le monde. Ah oui,
Voilà.
on se voit. Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Bienvenue à l'Hôtel de Ville.
Merci. I know you were popular, Mayor. I was wondering, is it because people saw champagne on the menu, or because you have a great pancake recipe you need to share with us? But maybe the only champagne you have today, so I hope we're going to have fun this morning. But thank you for inviting me. I think the mayor would say the moment, it's supposed to be an interview, but I decided to start.
I know.
But from the moment you asked me, I think it took a second for me to accept, right?
It's true. You accepted very quickly, and I'm very grateful for that. And I've been worried ever since that we won't be able to fill the entire time because you're so shy. I got to ask you this, because I can't remember whether it was Mona or Marie-France described you as the Energizer Bunny, but where does all that come from? Because you're like, every time I see you, and we've run into each other many times in the community, and you never get tired of meeting people, and you've got boundless energy. Like, where does that come from? And were you always that way?
Listen, I come from Shawinigan, so I don't know if there's something in the water down there. But no, I think it's a sense of purpose and happiness. Like most people, I wake up in the morning inspired. I think we live in interesting times. I do yoga. Now it's kind of known. I said that once to journalists, and it's become a story. Because I was coming in a scrum, they say, how could you be so calm? I said, well, I'm doing yoga. And now that became a kind of a news story, because I said, you guys are so excited in the morning. No, I think it's really this, waking up in the morning, and making sure that we seize the moment. You know one thing in politics, that you know when it starts, but you never know when it finishes. Jim, I don't know. You can probably tell us. You never know. Life in politics is a journey, and you have to make the most out of it. I really feel that I've been lucky because I had 5 departments, more or less. I started with Bill Morneau at finance and then move on, man. And I always feel that, every minute, every second, and I see Mona every hour, every day, there is so much to be done that I think we need to do that. And the connection with people is what gives me energy. I mean, the joke you said, did I say hello to everyone this morning? Almost. But for me, this is when things are not going well somehow, I always go back to the best remedy for me, or the best antidote, is to go see people. And that's where you get your energy. And I think the nation is far more positive than sometimes people would like to believe or make us believe, I think, when you go across the nation. So yoga, and making sure that you stay in shape and seizing the moment. And I would say being ambitious. I think one of my mission in this role is to raise the level of ambition of Canadians. I think we live in a time where no nation can be more optimistic than its leaders. So it's incumbent on you, on all of us, and my colleagues to really seize that moment and make Canadians understand that, we have our own challenges, but, you said I lived 20 years abroad. C'est sûr, quand tu as passé 20 ans de ta vie, j'ai passé 5 ans en Italie, 10 ans en Suisse, 5 ans à Londres. Quand on regarde l'état du monde aujourd'hui, c'est sûr qu'on regarde, puis on se dit, le Canada, it's still a beacon of hope for millions of people around the world. And you see that because Ottawa has been a magnet for talent. And for me, people, they vote with their feet. And when you see people coming and being interested in creating, building their family here, building their future here, it's because they see opportunities, they see possibilities, and it's for all of us to make that happen.
Terrific. Now, when we can talk about where Canada is going and how Ottawa is positioned to capitalize on some of the changes that you're seeing as industry minister, but I wanted to talk a little bit about your background because from what I read, it sounds like a decision that you made to go to school in the United States really changed the course of your life, and that's what set you on a path to go and live in Europe for 20 years. You mentioned you lived in Switzerland and in Italy and in London. So just tell me about that and that decision to go to law school in the U.S.
Well, I was more lucky than smart, to be honest. I come from a generation where is le recteur de l'Université d'Ottawa? Le recteur était avec nous tantôt, les gens le recteur, en tout cas, je le voyais tantôt, le recteur était avec nous. But, in my days, when you were at school, there were this billboard where you could take a sticker and you had to apply by mail. And I always, one thing I knew is that I wanted to do public service. That was I think I started in my first election was probably when I was 6. What
was that for?
I think it was in grade 1. And so on. I've been in student politics. And when I was university, I said, I always had that dream of, again, I always took the road less traveled. At the time, I was a young law student, I would say not even a lawyer. And it was at the time where Canada was opening up to the United States. So I said, there must be few lawyers, there must be a few in the room, which are familiar with U.S. law. So that should be something where someone should explore. And I remember I went to this thing. There was Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. Never heard of the university, very little about Cleveland, and my grades were really average. I was more in politics than in law, I guess. And I applied, and suddenly 3 months after a month, I got a reply, and they say you're accepted. I was so incredulous that I called the university. I said, "Are you sure that I just want to check because I come from Shawinigan. It's kind of a way to drive to Cleveland." They say, "Sir, we don't joke. If you've been accepted." And then when I got my diploma after, it was a master in U.S. law, I went to the dean. I said, "Dean, now that I have the diploma and it's in my safe, so you can take it away, why would you ever take someone like me in a master degree in the United States?" He said, "You want a real answer?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Listen, that was the first year we opened to international students, and you were the only Canadian who applied." So I don't know in life, sometimes being smart or being lucky, I don't know. But in this one, I was very lucky.
Yes, well, congratulations.
And my seatmate became my boss, so that's amazing. That's another story. People say, "How did you end up in Italy?" And I always say, be nice to the person next to you, because my seatmate at university in the U.S. became my boss, which was Italian. And I remember at the end of the class, he said, "What are you going to do?" And I was 23 by then, something like that. I said, "I don't really know. I'll probably go back to Canada." And he said, "Why don't you come work for us in the United States?" That was an Italian company. And eventually, I remember he said, "Would you move to Italy?" I thought that was my first business trip, which was all paid. And I remember a few days before he came to see me, he said, "Have you sold your stuff?" I said, "Well, what do you mean selling?" Well, he said, it's a permanent position. It's not like, I said, "Okay, let me think about that." But obviously I ran in my office, thought about 2 seconds just to pretend that I was, reflecting hard. I was living in an efficiency in Cleveland. Trust me, my whole belongings were very small. So I said to him, "Yes, as long as you pay for the luggage." And he said, "That's the deal." So I ended up in Italy was supposed to be 1 year and lasted 5 years. So that's how all these things happen.
Yeah.
Luck.
And making the smart decision to choose Italy over Cleveland as well.
Yeah.
Tough call. But what was that experience like working in Europe and then you came back to Canada? And I always think anytime I leave the country and then come back to Canada, I always have a renewed perspective of what we have here in this country. And we have our challenges. We have challenges here in Ottawa. We have challenges throughout the country. But whenever I travel, I'm reminded of how fortunate we are in Canada. So for you to have that 20 years abroad and then return to the country and choose to serve as an elected official, what did you learn from being away, and how did that inform the role that you've taken on as an elected official?
Well, first of all, it forces you when you come. I was 24 when I ended up in Italy, in Genoa, for those of you who may know, on the Italian coast. I know it may sound romantic today, but at 24, you think that life is always going to be like that. So you just go on, and I had to learn Italian on the street because obviously my name is Champagne, so it's not like there's a lot of Italian blood in our family. So I had to learn just by being there. And I can tell you, Italy in 1994, there was not that many foreigners, living and working. There was a lot of tourists, but, I remember, and I looked fairly young then, I remember going in the building, and I pressed the 9th floor, which was the top floor, and someone looked at me and said, "Oh, your dad works here. What's his name?" I said, "My dad? No, he works in Shawinigan." And they say, "Okay, so are you lost?" I said, No, my office is on the 9th floor. And it was inconceivable for a young person at that time to have some kind of leadership position or something. So, but it forced me, and I think it gave me a better understanding of those who have to come. Obviously, I didn't go in Europe under circumstances that many people have come in our country, either by choice or because they needed to flee a situation. But adapting yourself, making sure you fit in a community, understanding when you don't understand the language, when your driver's license doesn't work, when you have to, I shift 3 times in my life, all these things that we take for granted when you adapt to a new culture, a new community. I think it gave me that sense of deep respect for people who come on our shore and are trying to contribute to society, and that has been a learning. And I always wanted to do that because I knew in politics, at least at the time that I was considering that, the mold was people look pretty much alike, and I said, I'd rather leave to better come back with different thoughts, different ideas, and a different perspective. And honestly, being in Italy and then in Switzerland and the UK gave me that. I can tell you, moving from London to Shawinigan to run was quite an experience, I must tell you. It's not exactly the same dynamic from London, England to Shawinigan. I can tell you that story, but that was a funny one. But I think it made me more understanding. And when I became international trade minister and foreign ministers, it kind of gives you a perspective. And I always say that to young people, take the road less traveled. The world is far more interconnected than when I started. Imagine I applied for university, and those who are in the education field will smile. I applied and I had to have you went at the time, I needed $50, so you went to the post office to get these kind of posting that could be in the US dollar. This is when I say that to my daughter, I was born at the, prehistoric level or something like that. But it just showed me today the interconnectedness, I think, and especially because the fabric of Canada, 1/3 of Canadians are first generation or more or less Canadian. So that understanding of coming on our shore and understanding that people have chosen to be here. I always thank these people who have decided to come to our country, because today people have a choice. I look at these students, they apply to the UK, they apply to Australia, they apply to Canada, to some of our best universities. But it made me, I think, probably appreciate more the journey that people have to when they leave everything behind. To come on our shore. That was not my story. I went there for business, but I would say that a bit more of understanding and appreciation.
I read stories about you, you're in your 20s, you're working as a legal counsel within a large corporation, large international corporation, and you're walking into boardrooms and you're negotiating with these highly experienced international lawyers. What was that experience like for you?
Well, I look so young that I have to tell you a story. I was the lawyer for ABB, which is one of the large conglomerates in the world at the time, 200-something thousand employees. And my boss, which trusted me, I don't know if I could ever be trusting. I was very young, and he said, you're going to represent us in a negotiation with Daimler-Benz. We were selling the train business that Bombardier bought. And so they sent me as the head of the delegation as a lawyer. But I look at me, imagine at 28 or 30 what I could look like at 30. I was not taller. And so I walked to Daimler-Benz headquarters in Germany, in Stuttgart. And I remember people looking at me and say, okay, so I'm sitting there and I have said, okay, we're going to wait for the head of the delegation to start the meeting. And I said, well, that's me. People are looking and said, who? I said, me. They could barely see me, I guess. And they said, okay. And I'll tell you something where sometimes you have to be bold. This was a life-threatening decision. So I remember in our agenda, we were supposed to be like 5 and 5 on their side. And they came like with 28 or something like that. And I said, that's going to be a real challenge. I don't believe in, intellectual superiority. I think numbers matter. I said 5, 23 or 28. I said, that's going to be challenging. I said, listen, it's going to be very simple. Either you ask, let's assume they were 25 and we're 5. I said, either you select 20 people to leave the room or we're packing. And the Germans look at me and say, you must be joking. He said, you're in our headquarters, and I had to reestablish a bit of negotiating position. And they said, you want me to select people to leave the room? I said, listen, we said 5, otherwise we'll come back and we'll be better prepared. But that's the name of the game. Those are the rules we had established. And I could see the face of the CEO of Daimler-Benz, Herbert Diess at the time, I think was his name. And he said, okay. He said, let me make one phone call. And I thought I'd be fired. He would call the CEO. And he came back in the room and he named 20 people to get out of the room. And at that time, I knew that we were on a better footing for negotiate. We had a very tough, but it's these decisions where sometimes, you do it, Mark, all of us do it. It for me was about respect, was about also fairness and also trying to establish the ground rules. And I think when you act with integrity, when you act transparently, when you act with passion and honestly, I think people respect that. And it showed that to me because as a young person, people would take me for granted. And I think that helped me to establish. And I think it's a lesson. I say that to my girls all the time, to act with respect, but state also your position so that you would earn respect from the start. And I think that's, in the world that we live in, we feel that elected officials and others, we've seen a lot of stories. Votre collègue de Gatineau, par exemple, moi je pense que le respect, je pense que ça a sa place beaucoup. Puis je pense qu'on a perdu dans les dernières années un peu. Les uns envers les autres, pas seulement les élus, mais je pense les uns envers les autres, cette notion-là, de ceux qui travaillent dans l'intérêt public aussi, un respect puis un dialogue ouvert avec les citoyens et les citoyennes.
Oui, absolument, oui. So you mentioned you were interested in politics from a young age, and I think you always had the intention that you would run, but then, you go to Europe and you live there, and it's probably a great life. You're living in London, which is a wonderful city, and you make the decision. I mean, you could have at that point said, oh yeah, 10 years ago I was interested in politics and serving my community, but now I've got this great business career and I could keep going and continue to live in London. But you made the decision to move back to Shawinigan and run for Parliament, and you campaigned, I think, for a couple of years before the election. Why did you decide to do that? What was behind that?
Well, listen, it was a calling. I look at my journey and I look at yours, Mark, by the way, and I want everyone to recognize you have an amazing journey. I encourage all of you. I mean, the mayor more than many, but I would say look at his journey, and I think your journey is very inspiring. So I want to start with that and give you a big round of applause because I look at your background and what you've done, and
thank you.
you're going to inspire a lot of people to say, what you could do. I think you're the first mayor with Chinese background to be in a big city mayor, or at least in Ottawa. Listen, moving from London to Shawinigan, people have told me, by the way, my riding is the former riding of the other guy from Shawinigan. Don't need much introduction. I wish they would not have called him the little guy, because now people are struggling. They say, is he the little guy, or the mini guy from Shawinigan, or the other guy? I don't know. It's some guy. And, people were saying, you're going back in the riding of a prime minister. When I was in London, that seems like red carpet. And Mona and Yassir and Ryan and Marie-France, all of my colleagues, it was nothing but that, trust me. Because, I left for 20 years. And by the way, my riding is bigger than Belgium. So just so in terms of size, if you like Ottawa, my riding is 8 hours north-south driving, so not walking, by the way. So it's, you come to these places, and now you have to reconnect with the community. And obviously, when you connect with the community, it is a process. And I remember my team, I smile because I still see myself. Ils me demandaient, par exemple, d'aller, je me rappelle une fois, je vais à La Tuque. La Tuque, je ne sais pas si vous connaissez, Monsieur le maire, mais La Tuque, c'est assez au nord. Et j'arrive dans un restaurant, et là, mon équipe me dit, allez vous présenter. Mais là, c'était 2 ans avant l'élection. Alors, je fais les tables, vous m'avez vu ce matin. Imaginez, personne ne me connaît. Je dis, bonjour, monsieur, madame, mon nom c'est François-Philippe Champagne, je veux être candidat à la prochaine élection fédérale. Puis les gens me regardent, mais il n'y a pas d'élection fédérale. Je dis, non, mais un jour, il va en avoir une. Alors, there's nothing like going in a restaurant to run and say, people are looking at me and say, but there's no election. I say, but there'll be one day. And going around. So, c'était une expérience, but ce que ça m'a enseigné, c'est l'humilité. Because whatever your background, whatever your knowledge is, I would say whatever you think you have achieved financially or otherwise, when you engage with citizens, it's on an equal basis. Every citizens matter, and their concern is as important as anyone. And puis moi, ça a été, parce que j'explique ça souvent au monde des affaires, les gens oublient, tu sais, corporations don't vote, people vote. Et ça, c'est une affaire où, tu sais, moi, ce que ça m'a appris beaucoup, c'est l'humilité, parce que tout le monde est égal dans cette aréna-là. Et quand on arrive, il faut arriver, puis mes collègues l'ont vécu avec beaucoup d'humilité, parce que souvent, des gens arrivent avec... les gens ne vous voient pas pour ce que vous avez fait, mais pour ce que vous allez faire pour eux. And that's a big difference, because in some corporate world of the world, people may judge you for your experience, your background, sometimes even our society, your wealth or other things. But when you're on the ground of politics, it's what you're going to do for them. It's not about you. It's about them. And I think it's one of the most humbling experience, and I cherish it still to this day. But trust me, London, Shawinigan is quite a difference.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can remember during my first and only campaign, we went to some restaurant somewhere, and somebody from the campaign team said, "Do you want to go around and just start introducing yourself to the people sitting at the tables?" And I was like, not really, No,
it's something.
Why would I want to do that?
It's something, especially when it's lunchtime. Now I've learned, to choose your moment. But about introducing, I'll tell you something that will make you smile. Once I'm with Prime Minister Chrétien, so we're in Shawinigan, walking the street, and there's restaurants, and everyone he would see, if you saw me this morning, hold on. So he goes and he says, "Hi, my name is Jean Chrétien." And people are freezing. And I look at him and say, "Sure." It's like, most Canadians would recognize you, but I think in Shawinigan, it's probably like we're close to 99.999%. I mean, it's pretty. He said, "Never take a chance," and it reminds me, because in campaigning, I always say that to colleagues. Never assume people know who you are. I said, if there is a guy like him who has to. Every time I've been with him, he always says his name first. It always reminded me that people assume a lot of things in these interpersonal relationships, that people know who you are and what you stand for. And I say, if a guy like him has to introduce himself in Shawinigan, I think it's been a lesson for all the candidates. They said, state your name. Don't never assume that people know who you are, what you stand for.
That's a great lesson, absolutely. So let's turn to your current portfolio, because it's a fascinating one and there's many, many different aspects to it. But I think what would be of particular interest to people in Ottawa is the changing nature of technology. We're hearing obviously about how disruptive AI is going to be and other technological change that's coming. And we have a great technology community in Ottawa, as you know. Many of the times that I've seen you have been in Canada, where we have together visited some of the major employers there. There's some great international companies that are choosing Ottawa as the place to grow and to hire more people, which is fantastic. But what do you see for the future of Ottawa, and how can we position ourselves to capitalize on the changes that are coming instead of falling behind because of them?
Well, first of all, it's a great community. By the way, I'm impressed about what you've achieved, Mayor. I was looking at you in the room, and wow, I've never had a mayor breakfast, by the way. I've not tasted your pancake, but I would say the people that you brought is amazing. I think that's a recipe. Group. That's a recipe for doing that again. And I know you started something, so be careful what you start. You may have to live through it. But it's amazing what you've done, because I think what makes Ottawa special is the people, the community. It's quite amazing what we've achieved. I mean, sometimes as Canadians, we don't give ourselves a kudo or celebrate our success. But, Ottawa is the Silicon Valley of the North. And I think this is, as I was walking this morning, I was thinking, and you have council member from Canada, I think the two of them are here, saying, for me, I was reflecting what could be the role of Ottawa in the economy of the 21st century in our country. And it's probably, for me, you might be at the center of tackling our productivity challenge. Productivity has been a challenge in this country for as long as I've been able to read. At least there's been articles after articles about what should we do. And if you look at the transformation of the economy, I think that we have here in Ottawa, I would say probably some of the key ingredients to help our productivity. I'm thinking about AI. I'm thinking about quantum. I'm thinking about robotics, digitization of businesses. And one of the things, I was with Jensen. You may have heard, this is the company called NVIDIA, which has been partnering with Renovis that we have in the park. We've seen Nokia coming. We've seen Ericsson. I was with the CEO of NVIDIA recently, which is the one making 80% of the chips in the world. Quite amazing, by the way. I said, you're good at supercomputing. You're not bad at market cap either. There was a day last week where his market cap was equal to the Canadian economy. Not bad for someone who started a business of 3 people. So my thing, when I say dream big and everything is possible, he told me that when he started his business in 2017, he was driving by Intel with his used car. There were 3 people. Today's business is worth more. There was a day where his business was equal to the whole Canadian economy in terms of market cap. So someone who has, I think, not only achieved, but I think the vision. And I asked him a very simple question. That's how you'll see why I'm so much believing in the future of Ottawa. I asked him, I said, I come from a generation where the internet is one of the big transformation. I think in life, I think we've seen the internet. Now we're seeing we're going from the gas engine to the electric engine for cars. I mean, you see 1 or 2 of these big revolutions if you're lucky. Maybe 3, depending how long you live, but 1 or 2 might be what you can see. And I asked him a very simple question. I said, Jensen, compare to me what AI can do to society that internet did for us. I come from the internet age, I guess. So in a sense, we were most of us there when it started. He paused for a minute and he said, Minister, AI is going to be 1,000 times more transformational than the internet. And I came back that night at home and I said to my wife, I said, just assume he's wrong by 50%. Assume he's wrong by 90%. That still means that AI would be 10 times more transformational than the internet. And that made me reflect about, and if you bring that back to Ottawa, moi je pense qu'ici à Ottawa, grâce aux maisons d'enseignement, grâce à ce que Terry Matthews et ce qu'on a fait dans le parc technologique à Canada, grâce aux investissements qu'on a réussi à attirer, grâce à la réputation de la ville d'Ottawa, qui s'est taillée une place, je dirais, en Amérique du Nord, comme, je dirais, la capitale du Nord. C'est pas pour rien qu'on l'appelle la vallée aussi, comme de Silicon Valley, I would say the Northern Valley. Moi, je pense qu'on peut être au cœur de cette transformation-là industrielle qui va avoir des impacts pour les générations à venir. Moi, je pense qu'on est au cœur de cette grande transformation industrielle. And it starts with talent. And I'm happy to see universities and students and a lot of people, the Algonquin College, I see a lot of colleges and everyone who's been here, because I would say, I know we've attracted big investment in this country, and I've seen the headlines, and oftentimes it made me smile because people think it's about money. And I always tell them, no, it's about people. It's about talent. I never had one of the large investments, whether you talk about Stellantis, the Volkswagen, the Nordvolt, the Moderna, whatever you want. The first question they always ask me, Minister, do you have enough talent to fuel our growth? And I think as long as Ottawa remains a place to attract people, as long as Ottawa remains a place where people want to live, as long as Ottawa creates the condition to attract the best brain in the world on our shore and keep them here and give them the resources, the lab, the opportunities, I think we are best positioned to succeed in the economy of the 21st century. And that's going to be under your leadership.
I agree. Do you have any advice for us on how we can continue to grow as a, we obviously have the federal government as the major employer in our city, but we have a rapidly growing technology sector. It's nothing new. We've had that for years, but it's been through different cycles and waves. Do you have any advice for us on how we can grow our private sector economy?
Well, I would say keep doing the mayor's breakfast. By the way, I like it, and if you want to invite me again, I'll come. I think this is a great format. I'm really in awe by what you've done. I've never done that anywhere in the country or even abroad. So I think it's a great formula to bring people together. What I say, and I was with the Ottawa, not Business Journal, but the Ottawa Board of Trade, there's very few people in the world that wake up in the morning thinking about Canada. And we have to tell our story. And we have to say why Canada. And when you make that pitch, I think it easily comes, once you've passed the why, it's the when and how. And I think if there was one learning, I've been doing that for 10 years, like you said, living abroad a bit. I'm always amazed by the fact that we need to tell our story again, and again, because we assume that people know. And I'll tell you an example. In my role as co-chair of the U.S.-Canada team engaging with the United States with Minister Ng and Ambassador Hillman, our ambassador in Washington, I was with the CEO of one of the biggest banks in the country just last week, talking about engagement with the United States. And he said, Minister, I'll give you an example. He said he was with a governor of one of the, I won't say his name, he's well known to pretty much anyone or everyone, but like a state which is not a bordering state, but very close to. And he said, we're having a meeting, and it's pleasant and all that. And when the meeting finished, he said, the governor says to me, oh, governor, not governor, but he said, sir, I have to leave you because, you know what, I'm going to visit our largest trading partner. He said, I'm on my way to China. And I still look at him, he said, your largest trading partner? China? No. He said, Canada. China is your 5th largest trading partner. And the governor looked back and looked at this thing. He said, is that true? And he said, yeah, by far. I'm your largest employer. But it just reminds me how asymmetrical that relationship is. Sometimes, moi je le dis souvent, c'est comme si on a un beau-frère. On prend ça pour acquis. Tu sais, le Canada est là, on fait des choses ensemble. But for me, that relationship is all about, prosperity, security, and resiliency. And I'm just putting that in the context. How do we attract how we need? We need to tell our story. We need to tell, when we did the H1B1 opening, I don't know if you saw that. I was at Collision. Yeah, you were there, Marie-France. And we announced that. I was with Minister Fraser at the time. We were at a conference, I think, in Toronto. And we opened the H1B1 is these visa in the United States for talent. And I think we opened up, don't quote me on that, although the camera is rolling. But I think we opened like 10,000 or a certain number. I can't recall exactly how much was the number. 10,000. Geez, for an old guy, I still remember stuff. 10,000 people. So he said that on the stage. I was with him on stage. Collision is bringing the tech people. Within an hour or two, I think he had close to, don't quote me on that either, but like a million retweet. And I think within 24 hours, we were oversubscribed by a ratio of 10. So I think within hours or day, there was like 100,000 applications for 10,000 space. It just tells me, you know, that's, you know, you ask me what's in the water. For me, it's this talent attraction that we are still a big magnet for talent. And as long as we create the ecosystem, as long as we have livable cities, because I want to commend you, because, you know, in my job, a lot of premiers call me and mayors. And they say, well, Minister, why don't you bring a battery plant here or a factory there or an investment here? And I always say it's not like I have a magic stick. You know, you need to create a condition. You need the talent, you need the ecosystem, in some places the critical mineral, sometimes the renewable energy is a big piece, access to market. But one of the things I would say is that what people, and I'll give you a very practical example, when we had some of the large investment you've seen, people were asking me and why they preferred Canada. They were looking at a site, whether it's in Canada or the United States. And the place that they were pushed to or considering in some states, they were telling me they had difficulty having their people move there. And I think it just shows me why the work you're doing in the City Council and the Ottawa Board of Trade, livable cities, places that people want to come. People come with their family. They want to raise kids. They want to have a life, you know. It's the same thing in the movie industry. Believe it or not, I ask, why are we so successful in the movie industry? I was asking in Hollywood, you know, in Los Angeles, I can't remember where I was. They said, you know, sir, when we have to shoot a movie, that may take like 6 months. Try to find one of the A-star whatever to go live in the mountains of this where there's no life around. They want to be in places where it's livable, where you have an offering socially, you have like sport entertainments, you have a lot of things. And I think it's all to your credit, Mark, and the City Council to have made Ottawa a very attractive and livable cities. If you ask me, talent, livable cities, and making sure we tell our story, that's probably the ingredient that I would say, if there's a recipe for success, those are certainly 3 key ingredients.